My name is Eric Rudis, and this is my presentation on Marbury v. Madison. So, Marbury v. Madison was very different for what the Supreme Court cases we have today. Back in the fledgling colonies, or the first Americas, the Supreme Court was really not considered an equal branch of the government. Yes, it was established in the Constitution. However, the executive branch, being the presidency and the Congress, seemed to be doing everything. The Supreme Court was kind of just there to deal with certain legal issues affecting the country, but nothing of precedence, nothing of major import, such as constitutionality or judicial purview or judicial review. The Supreme Court was kind of like the kid brother in the room. The interesting thing about this case, too, was also that there was no legal precedence. The Supreme Court and the country was still in its infancy, so there was really nothing for the Supreme Court to draw upon other than the Constitution, which made it very difficult to establish how to go about it. The Supreme Court was supposed to be the court that was supposed to hear it. However, most times the Supreme Court was the cases had to come from a lower court. So it was very difficult for Marshall, the justice at the time, to really figure out how to tackle this case. The significant aspects of this case was that Marbury was appointed by John Adams previous to Jefferson's winning of the election. Madison was Thomas Jefferson's Secretary of State, where Jefferson had basically told him to stop and to not deliver Marbury's writ of justice of the peace. The case ultimately ruled in favor of Marbury, since the law and the Constitution specifically say that if the executive branch orders and signs the writ, then he should have been emplaced. The thing that Marshall was adamant about was fighting back against Jefferson's use of the executive powers and basically bullying the Supreme Court into doing what he wanted. So it was very interesting and monumental that the Supreme Court fought against the executive branch. And this case also gave us what is known as judicial review. So today's impact is that the executive, the legislative, and the judicial are all three equal branches of the government. Each is a check and balance to the other, and the Supreme Court clearly has its role of judicial review and interpretation of the Constitution, whereas if the executive or the legislative branches of the government issue laws, it is the Supreme Court's right and duty to ensure that they align with the Constitution. So that's something that Marbury v. Madison clearly impacted in today's. So again, Marbury v. Madison, probably the most, if not one of the most impactful cases of the Supreme Court, in that it established the Supreme Court as the court of the land and the only one that can interpret the Constitution, and it provides overall judicial review for all cases in the land. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.